5 True Creepy Horror Stories. Back in the summer of 2017, I was 19 and working the night shift at a small, aging hotel near the Oregon coast. My name's Jenna, and honestly, that job was supposed to be temporary, just a way to save up for college. The hotel was quiet most nights, barely half full. That made what happened even harder to explain. It was close to midnight when the phone rang. The display showed it was coming from room 209. I remember it clearly because that room was supposed to be vacant. The voice on the line was hoarse, almost like breathing more than speaking. I couldn't make out the words, but it chilled me. I told whoever it was that I'd send someone to check. My coworker at the time, Marcus, raised an eyebrow when I told him. He was 25, tall, usually calm. Thought I was just jumpy. But he grabbed the spare key and took the elevator up. 5 minutes later, he still hadn't come back. I asked through the walkie. No answer. 10 minutes passed. Then Marcus returned slower than usual. His face was pale. He told me the room was empty, bed untouched. No bags, no signs anyone had been there, but the window had fog on it from the inside, like someone had stood too close. He said it felt colder than the rest of the floor. I didn't want to believe him, so after my shift, I went up alone. I used the master key, stepped inside. The lights flickered as I walked in. The air was heavy still. I didn't hear anything at first, but just as I turned to leave, a soft whisper crawled out from the bathroom, like a voice pressed against glass. I flung the door open. Nothing. But on the mirror, someone or something had written 3 words in the steam: "Don't trust Marcus." I stared at it until the message faded. I never told him, but I started watching him closer. Guests began complaining about odd knocks at night, lights turning on in empty rooms, all of them near 209. One night I caught Marcus staring at the security feed. 209's door opening by itself, no one there. He didn't speak, just grabbed his jacket and left. He never came back. A week later, the manager sealed that room shut, said it was for renovations. I quit 2 days after. Sometimes when I sleep, I still hear the voice, not through my ears but behind them, soft, slow. I was 13 that summer, spending 2 weeks with my cousins at my Aunt Marlene's cabin in northern Wisconsin. The place sat right on the edge of a quiet lake, surrounded by thick pines that seemed to lean just a little too close. I shared a room with my cousin Lily, while her brother Darren and our friend Caleb took the loft. During the day, everything felt normal. We'd swim, play cards, eat marshmallows by the fire. But at night, the lake changed, still as glass. No crickets, no frogs, just silence. I remember Lily waking me one night, whispering that someone was standing on the dock. I got up, looked through the window, and I saw it too. A tall figure, motionless. Just a dark outline under the moonlight. I thought maybe it was Darren pulling a prank, but when I checked, he and Caleb were fast asleep, snoring. The figure didn't move. It stood there until morning. Then it was gone. No footprints, no wet planks on the dock, just pine needles, untouched. We didn't say anything to Aunt Marlene. She was quiet enough already, always keeping her eyes on the trees. But that night, when the power flickered and the house went cold, I saw her clutch a necklace and mutter something under her breath, like a prayer. When I asked about it, she said it was for protection. From what, she wouldn't say. The next evening, we found Caleb standing barefoot at the edge of the lake, eyes wide open. He didn't answer when we called. Darren grabbed him, pulled him back. He said he didn't remember walking out there, that he'd had a dream about a voice humming under the water, something calling his name. That night, I couldn't sleep. Around 3 a.m., I heard humming, faint but constant. I got up, heart racing, and crept down to the kitchen. The back door was open. Lily stood outside in her pajamas, staring at the lake. I ran to her, grabbed her arm, but she didn't react. Her eyes were glassy. I shouted until she blinked, suddenly gasping, confused. We left the next morning, packed in silence. Aunt Marlene didn't try to stop us. As we drove off, I saw her walking slowly toward the dock, humming. Same tune I heard that night. When I asked Lily about it later, she said she still dreams about the lake. Dreams where she walks out into the water, smiling, and never turns back. My name's Elise, and when I was in college, I rented a room in an old Victorian house on Franklin Street with 3 other students, Mark, Jenna, and Lewis. It looked charming from the outside, with ivy curling up the porch columns and a brass knocker shaped like a lion. The inside, though, always felt colder than it should have, like the walls held their breath when no one was watching. At first, it was little things. My bedroom door would creak open around 2 or 3 a.m. even though I'd latched it. I thought it was the draft. But when Jenna said she heard someone whisper her name at night, even though none of us had spoken, I stopped brushing it off. She said it came from inside her closet, like someone standing behind the coats. Mark, ever the skeptic, laughed it off. He even joked one night, standing at the top of the stairs, daring the house to prove it was haunted. That same night, he slipped on the landing, said he felt someone tap his shoulder right before he lost balance. There was no one behind him, just the railing and a hallway that always stayed too dark. We started keeping the hallway light on, but sometimes it'd flicker out exactly at midnight. Not before, not after. Lewis tried replacing the bulb 3 times. It always burned out by the next morning. Then came the tapping from inside the walls, a slow, steady rhythm, sometimes near the kitchen, sometimes right behind my headboard. One evening, Jenna and I stayed up late studying in the living room. The others were out. She froze mid-sentence and asked if I heard that. I hadn't, until I did, a low whisper, not words, just breath, like someone exhaling right by our ears. The air went cold and I felt my skin prickle. We didn't say anything after that, just went to bed early. Then the mirror cracked, not shattered, just a thin line, almost like a hair running from the top corner to the center. It appeared one morning in the hallway. No sound, no explanation. Lewis said it looked like a scratch made from the inside. We covered it with a towel. None of us wanted to look into it anymore. The last night before we moved out, we all slept in the living room. Something about that house had changed us. Mark didn't make jokes anymore. Jenna kept a small lamp on even in the daylight. Lewis stopped going into the basement. And me, I still dream of that whisper, not words, just breath. Still close, too close. My name is Derek. The summer before my final year at university, I took a weekend trip with 3 friends, Isla, Connor, and Lydia. We rented a cabin near Pine Hollow Lake, a place tucked away and barely lit by cell towers. No signal, no neighbors, just tall trees and a still lake that never seemed to ripple. The cabin was old, but charming. Exposed beams, dusty furniture, the kind of silence that feels heavy. My room had a small window facing the lake. Nothing unusual, except that it was locked shut from the outside. I remember asking Connor about it. He shrugged, said maybe it was just stuck. We laughed it off. On the first night, around 1 a.m., I woke up to a soft tapping. It wasn't loud, just light and rhythmic, like someone gently brushing their fingers on the glass. I turned toward the window. It was too dark to see anything. I tried sleeping again, told myself it was a branch or a bird, but the tapping came back the next night. Same hour, same rhythm. I didn't mention it at first. I didn't want to sound paranoid. But on the 3rd night, Lydia came down to breakfast, pale and quiet. She said she saw someone standing by the tree line just beyond the lake, staring at the cabin. When Connor checked, there were no footprints, just soft soil, undisturbed. Later that afternoon, Isla and I hiked around the lake. From across the water, I looked up and saw the window of my room. I stopped. Someone was standing there. Not clearly, just a shape, still, watching us. I waved, thinking maybe it was Lydia. But when we got back, no one had gone upstairs. The door was still locked. My room was empty. That night, we all slept in the living room. No one admitted they were scared, but no one wanted to be alone either. At exactly 1 a.m., we heard the tapping again. This time, it wasn't just at the window. It was at the door. The front door. Soft, intentional. Connor got up to check, but when he opened it, there was nothing. No wind, no animal, no tracks. We left the next morning, packed everything before sunrise. On the drive back, Hila finally asked the question none of us wanted to say out loud. Who locked the window from the outside? I don't know. None of us do. But sometimes when I close my eyes, I still hear that tapping. Not loud, not far, just close enough.